I think of music in terms of sound. They're not my words. They're the words of one of the county's most noteworthy composers, whose name is forever emblazoned across the Northampton Academy and whose work is celebrated every year thanks almost entirely to the strenuous efforts of my next guest. The 2013 Malcolm Arnold Festival will again be taking place. It's the 19th and 20th of October for your diary, and once again, Paul Harris and his team will be putting on 2 days of events packed with performances and affection for a man whose compositions include full-blown classical music concertos, symphonies, and perhaps more popularly and perhaps most well-known, his film scores. He joins me in the studio right now, not Sir Malcolm Arnold, Paul Harris. Paul, lovely to see you back in the studio.
Lovely to see you, John. Thank you very much.
It's come round to being that time of the year again.
It has, yes. It's wonderful. This is the 8th festival, believe it or not, and I'm already looking forward to the 10th. In 2 years' time, it's going to be a major celebration.
You are getting it well ahead of yourself. We will come to the 10th in due course. How do you manage to put a festival on every year, given that there is a finite amount of Malcolm Arnold's music that is available, and you spin it every time? You manage to theme each festival in a particular way. Is that because the man was as prolific as he was?
He was very prolific, and people don't really get how prolific he was. And the fascinating thing about Malcolm is the breadth of the number of genres that he composed in, and all with so much colour and success and accessibility. And that's why it's actually quite easy to put a festival in each year, because there is so much music and fun music to draw from. We always find more stuff that people are going to enjoy.
Is he a serious composer?
He's a very serious composer.
Or is he a light composer?
He is a very serious composer, and he's a light composer. I went to the Proms last week to hear the light music evening last Wednesday, which featured 2 of Malcolm's works. But just as equally well, he could have been in the most non-light music concert. He's written 9 symphonies that we did at the festival a couple of years ago that are great works. So really, some of the really serious music scholars of this country rate them as among the most important symphonic cycles in Europe of the 20th century.
On that basis, do you think he gets due credit for the work that he's produced?
No, it's a good question, Don. He doesn't. And he's still considered by so many to be a light music composer because of things like the Grand Overture for vacuum cleaners, and his film music for films like St. Trinian's, which are, of course, rather light-hearted. But there are the 2 sides to Malcolm. There are many sides to Malcolm. And that's why this festival is so easy to put on.
Well, I'd like to come to that in a moment or two, if I may. It's easy to gloss over the name of Sir Malcolm Arnold. It's almost a given for Northampton and Northamptonshire. There is no blue plaque to his memory just yet. There may well be in due course. But perhaps it's easy to gloss over his name because the majority of his life was lived away from Northampton. He was born in this part of the world, but he moved away for a considerable part of his life. At the same time, though, he is absolutely of Northamptonshire. His music reflects that. His life reflects that. It's right for his work to be celebrated in the town of his birth.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you say he lives away, but he did live in Northampton for his first 18 years, which is quite a long time. Then he came back to Northampton in later life. So, the proportion of his life spent in Northampton is quite considerable.
OK, now you've written the definitive biography of the man. From your perspective, what do you consider to be his legacy? That word has been perhaps much used in recent months, but his name is on the Academy. His name is in the festival, which we're going to be seeing in October of this year. What is the legacy sonically of his work to the society of music that we have in this country now?
His legacy sonically, I'm very glad you used that word, is that he wrote music that people could enjoy. People would find accessible and would just sit there and say, this is nice. I'm enjoying listening to this. And this was one of his problems, because he was a composer, obviously mostly in the mid part of the 20th century, when serious music, and I put the word serious in inverted commas, was going in very curious directions. And a lot of these, what we might call avant-garde composers, were writing really rather not terribly pleasant music to listen to. And, indeed, people don't listen to it anymore. But Malcolm never did. He always wrote tunes. He always wrote music that the people could enjoy. This is his legacy. He gave us a body of music written in the mid-20th century that we can still listen to and enjoy, and we always will be able to. All these other people will come and go, and they certainly will go. Malcolm's name will live on.
In previous years, whilst we've been getting ready for the festival, we've talked to people who worked with him, and universally, they talk about his sense of humour. His was a colourful life. He was a humorist both at work and away from it, but he also had very dark spells in his life. Very dark spells. From your point of view, as his biographer, was he a flawed genius, or perhaps a casualty of his own lifestyle? And the critics, because he got savaged by the critics on occasions.
Yeah. Interestingly, the biography, which I wrote in association with Tony Meredith, we called it Rogue Genius. He was a rogue genius, which I slightly prefer than a flawed genius, because he was a genius. As a composer, as someone who wrote music, he was a genius. But there was a roguishness about him in all sorts of different ways, which is why we rather cleverly chose that word. So yes, there was a rogueness about him. But it didn't stop him. He was the master of the practical joke, for example, putting dead fish down the organ pipes at the Royal College of Music.
You're kidding.
No,
You're kidding.
He did that once. Also, he used to enjoy playing jazz on Vaughan Williams's piano. I think Vaughan Williams had probably stopped teaching by the time he was there, but it was a very special piano that was revered by everyone. He used to go into Vaughan Williams's room and play jazz on it, which in the 1930s, when he was there, the end of the 30s, was not the right thing to be doing.
But we would celebrate that kind of rebelliousness.
Oh, absolutely.
If he was to have his time again now, he would be a very popular and popularist composer.
He would, and that's what he was, even in his time. He wanted to be very... He wanted people to love his music, and so we do, because it's so tuneful. It draws us in, everything he writes.
The festival comes up on the 19th and 20th of October. For you, as the programmer, as the organiser, as the man who is the real power behind it, what would you say are the highlights of this festival? Given, of course, that there is always a gala concert, and this year it features the clarinet. That's on right. Sunday. But what else would you say are the high points?
Well, as usual, we got many high points. Malcolm loved working with young people. He wrote a lot of music for young people, and we are featuring a piece called The Turtle Drum this year, which I'm sure is going to be a highlight. It's going to be put on by the Malcolm Arnold Academy, which is that wonderful school now in Northampton that has been with us every year and done something. But this is the biggest thing they've done. It's a 40-minute piece, especially written for children. And I know from what I've heard already that they're going to do a spectacular performance of it. That will be very exciting. 12 o'clock on Saturday. We've got a family concert on the Saturday afternoon, and you mentioned not everything is going to be at the Derngate. We're taking the festival to St Matthew's up the road. Their great organist Stephen Moore is going to play the organ concerto. That's going to be something special. And we're also featuring Sweeney Todd, which is Malcolm's ballet with our lovely gruesome story. And I've commissioned a narration for the first time ever, so that we're hoping a lot of young people will come and they will get the story.
And St Matthew's has got its own connection to Malcolm.
Malcolm's parents met in St Matthew's on the organ stool there. They were both having organ lessons with the same teacher. That's where they met. Malcolm was there many times as a teenager, giving concerts, playing his trumpet there. And later in life, he was commissioned by St Matthew's to write a choral work, that time during the great Walter Hussey period, where he was inviting lots of British composers.
And the organ at St Matthew's, it's a mighty organ in its own right. Yes. I mean, we did a documentary about Malcolm Arnold's time. Maybe we'll rerun it, actually. But we did a documentary, and we got Stephen to play that organ. Yes. I had no idea it had got the power and the sound that it has. It really is an incredible musical instrument.
It's a great organ, and the organ concerto is, these words like concerto, symphony, they sound like heavy pieces. They're not. When Malcolm writes these pieces, they're very accessible. And the organ concerto is a mighty work, and it very rarely played.
And that concert at St Matthew's, that's one where you're particularly keen to get young people involved.
Really want to get
families
young people,
as well.
Really have programmed it very, very carefully, so it's really perfect. We've got 3 pieces with narration. We've actually been doing some non-Malcolm Arnold pieces. We're doing the great Peter and the Wolf, one of the most enduring pieces that young people like. Prokofiev, Peter and the Wolf.
Yep.
We're doing 1 or 2 other things with narration, Sweeney Todd narration. It's going to be great fun. Lots of pieces that young people will absolutely love. Oh, we're doing a recorder piece as well. Hopefully, still many people in Northampton play the recorder, so we're doing his recorder concerto, which is terrific. It's very hard, but it's great fun.
Oh, just because it's hard doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it.
Oh,
because it's hard means that you should do it.
Absolutely.
You have the Northampton County Youth Orchestra. They're going to be playing on Sunday.
Yep.
They're doing the Peterloo Overture. They're doing water music, Cornish dances. It's almost a prom in its own case, in its own right.
Yeah. The Northampton County Youth Orchestra are a terrific orchestra, possibly the best youth orchestra in the land. I'd be
seriously.
I'd be very happy to support that opinion.
You're not just saying.
Absolutely not just saying that. They are truly excellent. And, you could close your eyes and listen to them and think you're listening to a professional orchestra. So we're delighted that every year, again, since the very first festival, they've supported the festival and given us this wonderful lunchtime concert on the Sunday. And as you say, the particular programme we've got this year is wonderful. We've also got a flute concerto. We're celebrating some of the concertos this year as a bit of a theme. And a Northampton girl is going to be playing the flute concerto on the Sunday as well. So that's going to be another great concert to come to.
And you have the gala concert.
We have it.
You always have a gala concert on the Sunday evening. You've got all kinds of music being played. There's music from Pirates of the Caribbean, Schindler's List, Rhapsody in Blue, The Flight of the Bumblebee.
Yes, absolutely. Which has been used as all the music has been used in films in some respect. Our soloist in Malcolm's second clarinet concerto, which is his most jazzy and really exciting piece, is the young Julian Bliss, who is taking the country by storm. Also America, actually. I may say, if I may, one of my ex-pupils.
Yes, now this leads me on, because I've kept quiet about this. I've mentioned clarinet a couple of times, and I've mentioned that there was a connection to Stowe. You are a clarinetist of no mean reputation in your own right. You're a composer in your own right.
That's kind of you to say.
And you taught at Stowe for a number of years.
I did teach at Stowe, yes. I was in charge of their woodwind and brass and percussion department, as it were, and had a great time. We had a really wonderful time. And in fact, Julian came up to Stowe, this is more than 10 years ago now, as he's only about 22 or 23 now. He came up when he was obviously a lot younger and did some little recitals there. So he cut his teeth in the area.
I suspect there was also a stake being planted in the ground. Did you get Stowe particularly playing Malcolm Arnold's music?
We had a lot of Malcolm Arnold at Stowe, yes, we did indeed. And I remember taking one of my pupils over to meet Malcolm, who did a little sort of programme about him, just interviewed him. Which was great. This was a few years ago. Before, I mean, Malcolm's last few years were not happy years, but immediately before that, they were happy years. And I remember taking another pupil of mine over there. We had a nice afternoon. The
gala concert takes place at 7:30 on Sunday evening. Having said that, you're particularly keen to get a younger audience to embrace Malcolm Arnold's work. If the man was putting a festival on himself of his own music, he too would be doing the same thing. Young people and young people's music making was absolutely fundamental to his interest in music.
Absolutely. And I think this festival this year is possibly the one that we've created that is most in tune with that thought. And so I'm really hoping that a lot of young people and their parents will come along to quite a lot of the events this year. There's nothing that no one could possibly not enjoy.
Now, that's a great way of phrasing it. There's nothing that nobody... I can't even remember the words myself.
Too many negatives.
There's something there for everybody. There's lots for everybody to enjoy. Tickets for this are obviously being handled by Royal and Derngate, notwithstanding that they aren't hosting absolutely every single event. They're doing most of it, but not all of it. If people want to get hold of tickets, it's 624811. In previous years, I know you've done a tremendous festival deal on tickets. Are you able to run that again? Because there's a separate ticket for the gala concert.
Yeah, I mean, the price of tickets is amazing, actually. I think it's £12 for the entire festival, not the gala concert. That's everything from the Saturday morning to the Sunday evening. Just amazing, £12. I think a day ticket is £7.
If there was ever a good opportunity to get the youngsters involved and at low cost, then that's got to be it. In the past, I know you've made a great play about opening the festival up with different people. One year I had the pleasure of doing it myself. This time you've got a genuine dame and the first performance of something rather special.
Yes, indeed. We've got the great Dame Monica Mason coming to launch the festival. Dame Monica Mason was a prima ballerina, and she was one of the senior ballerinas at Covent Garden for many, many years. She danced in one of Malcolm's ballets' first performance. Electra, she was the star in Electra. So we're delighted she has a really good connection with Malcolm. And during that launch, I've commissioned a new work by a young composer who called, interestingly, Toby Young, and he's written us a piece called Fanfare for Malcolm. So which is going to be performed by the Northampton County brass players. So that's going to be a very exciting start.
And if anybody thinks that this is purely to do with classical music and that classical music is dreary, I can assure you that is not the case. It's not just orchestral music as well.
Oh, no.
Malcolm wrote pieces of music that could be sung too.
Yes.
Choral music. You've got someone singing songs.
We have. On the Sunday afternoon, we've got a recital of Malcolm's songs, and they are delightful. They are, as you can imagine, he poured out his tunes into these songs. They are so tuneful, and some of them are very funny as well. I've got one or two real surprises in that concert, and I hope people will not be put off by the fact that it's called a vocal recital. It's actually going to be terrific fun.
It's going to be fun all the way through the course of the weekend. Back again. Already, Paul Harris is thinking about 10 years' worth of festivals. We're still a couple of years away from that. The 8th will do nicely for this year in 2013. I think of music in terms of sound. There will be great sounds to be had. Sunday, the 20th of October, and Saturday, the 19th of October. It all begins at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. It then rolls through the whole of Saturday and Sunday, finishing off with that gala concert at 7:30. If you want to go along, tickets are very, very inexpensive compared to what you would ordinarily pay for the calibre of performer that you're going to be seeing over the course of this weekend. 01604 624 811, the box office number for Royal and Derngate. Paul, there's also a fabulous website for lovers of Malcolm Arnold's music and, of course, the festival too.
Yeah, the malcolmarnoldfestival.com, I think it's called. But please come and look at us on our website.
I'm sure it'll be absolutely brilliant. And, there'll be lots and lots of great performances going on. I see in here a piece of music composed by a certain Paul Harris, actually.
I hope you wouldn't notice that.
If you couldn't get your own music in there at some point, influenced no doubt as it is by the work of Sir Malcolm Arnold, then it would be a bad thing indeed. Sir Malcolm's work will be featured. St Matthew's Church for the family concert. Do, if you can, get the youngsters along to that one, because it's a fabulous venue to have music played, and there will be great fun to be had, I promise you. 4 o'clock St Matthew's Church on the Saturday, gala concert 7:30 on the Sunday, but lots and lots of other things. Go and have a look at the website for Royal and Derngate. 01604 624 811, the box office number. Paul, we'll be talking a lot more about Malcolm Arnold between now and October. Lovely to have you in today.
Thank you very much, Steve.